Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky.
You know, my path was not a straight path. It wasn't, the cookie cutter path towards being an Orthodox rabbi. I was born in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's not a hometown known for producing great Orthodox rabbis. My dad was in the Air Force. We lived in Spain. Then we lived here in Evanston, and though my family was Orthodox, we lived in Evanston, which was a little bit off the beaten path. I went to public high school, went to Grinnell College in Iowa. So I've been around different places a little bit. And on the one hand, you could say, well, it's a little weird, it's different, but I'm actually very grateful for the path that God has led me on. I think it really exposed me to a lot of different types of people, exposed me to a lot of different situations, and has really helped me connect to different people because I can understand a lot more, I think, about the world and about people's Jewish lives and just their lives in general than had I gone through the system in the straight ahead way.
Today we're here with Rabbi Ari Hart, who is the rabbi of Skokie Valley Agudath congregation in Skokie, Illinois. And Ari comes to us today with a lot of background in the area, in Evanston, in Skevanston. He's a local resident, former client of mine, and just a great personality and a great person in this community. So without further ado, Rabbi Ari.
It's great to be here. My first podcast.
This is really your first podcast?
First time. Yeah.
So you are, you're a social justice warrior, I guess. And why are you? What made you that way?
That's like a loaded social justice warrior. People, that's an insult. I think it's
is that
cool
an
thing.
insult? I think it's a compliment.
People use it as an insult, but it is look. If you're going to be a warrior for something, you might as well be a warrior for a better world. Look, I mean, I was raised that way. My parents, my grandparents. My grandmother was a refugee from Nazi Germany. My other side of the family also refugees earlier from pogroms in Eastern Europe. And so that sense of what it means to be persecuted, and then taking those experiences and both, first protecting yourself and then also looking out for other people experiencing those things. That's just part of my family story, and it's part of our faith story as Jews. We're reading right now the stories of the liberation from Egypt, and those are stories which talk about oppression, and then God's sensitivity towards oppression, and then the call after being redeemed from that oppression to not oppress others and to love those who are vulnerable and protect the vulnerable. So it's my family, it's my faith, and I look around and it's the world around us. So there's so much that can be done. I'm actually an optimist, although I see there are so many things that are negative in the world. We are undergoing in human history radical improvement of the human condition. Things are way better now than they ever have been in human history. And so I believe that that's because of social justice warriors for the last thousands of years who have continuously striven to make things better. And we have a great track record of progress. And if we don't blow it all, we could continue that progress even more. So that's how I think about it.
Is that why you chose to be in the rabbinate?
Yeah, after I graduated from college, like many people, searching for what my path would be, and thought a lot of, went to Evanston High School from this area, came back to this area after college, and thought about, going into the law or going into education or into social work, that kind of those fields. And a great mentor to me suggested that all the things that I cared about, spirituality, law, helping people, building community, could be done as a rabbi, as in one complete package. And I never really thought about the rabbinate before. I'd been on my own religious journey where I grew up Orthodox and in that world, and then stepped away in high school and college. The Amish have this concept called the Rumspringa, the 1 year away. I took like an extended 10-year Rumspringa away from Jewish life. And then a return after college, to return to my roots and to my spiritual roots and the roots of my family and my spiritual ancestors.
Why'd you come back?
It was a couple different things. it was a combination of just a search for meaning and transcendence, which I was looking in a lot of places, in meditation and travel and music, and realizing that maybe there was more to my own faith tradition than I had realized at the age of 13. So it was just a return, looking for answers for the questions I was asking, but in my own roots. I think it was a search for community, trying to figure out, I'm a big universalist. I think God loves all people and I love all people, but also we have our family and our tribe, and trying to find my place in that and reconnecting to that. Those were a big part of it.
Is that why, there's a lot different things that rabbis can do besides being a pulpit rabbi. Is one of the reasons why you chose to be a pulpit rabbi, so you could bring the community together in that type of space?
Yeah, when I started, I had no intentions of being a pulpit rabbi. In fact, I thought it was like the last thing I thought I would be. I thought I'd be on a campus or in some kind of organization. But I actually had an opportunity to serve in the pulpit right after I finished, and kind of fell in love with the pulpit, because what happens in a pulpit is you're touching every aspect of communal life, and you're doing so many different things, and it's very real. These concepts like loving people who are different, or creating safe and ethical communities. All these kind of lofty ideas become very real and very concretized in the pulpit, because you're really working on the ground in a community, and you also see every kind of issue. You're dealing with poverty, you're dealing with mental illness, you're dealing with substance abuse, you're dealing with domestic violence. Every possible issue you could care about comes up in a community. So when I saw how rich pulpit life is, and then you combine that with people's lives over their whole life, so you're dealing with funerals and births and weddings, and you're just so enmeshed in these really profound moments in people's lives. It's very compelling.
So you have a lot more leverage to help people, I guess you would say.
Yeah, you wind up interfacing with people in these very very joyful, very vulnerable, very profound moments, and you can make an impact, for better and for worse. It's scary how much power, or not power, but how much potential impact you can have, and it's both scary but also very very compelling.
Well, I think the things that you do work on make it not scary but good. There's I guess you could do things good or bad. You could use that power. One of the things that you started was the Ori L'Tzedek, and that's an organization to help steer things in the right way. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, that was we founded that organization when I was still in rabbinical school, and there was a sense amongst many of us that there wasn't a voice within the Orthodox community that was, pushing the community towards living up to its own values. The Bible, the Torah, the prophets, the Talmud, Jewish law, each in their own way are filled with ethical, teachings and ideas that one should live an ethical life and a fair life, and should treat all people correctly, and animals and correctly, specifically regarding food, which maybe we'll talk about in a second. And there was a feeling that there just wasn't a voice in the community that was pushing the community on those issues, and that tragically, the community in many ways was doing the opposite, was creating harm. And it seemed to be this great contradiction between what the teachings were and what was actually happening on the ground. So we created this organization to try to address that, and to try to, not just in theory, but actually in practice, to move the needle closer to justice in situations where we felt like it really wasn't happening. most famously around the kosher food industry, which has this perception for many that it's more ethical, holier, etc. But what we found out was that some of the same unethical, terrible things that happen outside the kosher industry are happening in the kosher industry, and sometimes even worse, like abuse of workers and abuse of animals and wage theft and overtime theft. So we did some initiatives to try to bring the consumer power to bear to clean it up, and we had some successes and some challenges, and very proud of the work that we did, and it's still needed today.
Is it continuing?
It's continuing. I've stepped away. It was 10 years of labor of love and volunteer, just putting in so much. And when I came to Chicago, this community that in the Skokie Valley Synagogue, just requires really 110% of my focus and energy. So I stepped away from the board. But it is continuing. They're doing great work. Right now, a lot with the refugee, the migrant situation at the border, and continuing to spread the discourse of Torah and social justice, and it's very important.
That's a great legacy that you have there.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So now you are at Skokie Valley. What brought you there?
It was a very fortuitous constellation of things that brought me there. I had been working in New York at a synagogue for the last 5 years, the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, a really very special synagogue in terms of values and just the community that's there. So very happy. I was the associate rabbi, so there's a big synagogue, 600 families, 5 rabbis, 20 staff, big operation. And I got a phone call from someone involved in the Skokie Valley saying, we're trying to do something here. We're trying to turn this synagogue that we were a part of has been struggling over the last 20, 30 years, and we're trying to turn it around, and we want to know if you want to be a part of that. And we want to go in a direction of a synagogue that is outward focused, that is reaching out beyond its walls, that is inclusive, that's welcoming to all regardless of background or orientation or anything. And we want you to be a part of it, and it was very compelling, and came to visit and just felt that there was a lot of potential there, great people involved, and a building and a legacy to build on, and it's my hometown. So the fact that it's where I'm from, and my family had actually we lived in Evanston, and they had just moved to Skokie. Right. So that made it more compelling. And we knew a great realtor, and that made it more compelling.
That's right. I made that happen too.
You sure did.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting with Skokie Valley. My family went there for many years, and my grandparents and my mom and her brothers moved there in early 1960s and been members there for a long time. So I remember it going through transitions, and then my family or my immediate family had left at a certain point. But you would think that the synagogue was going to close at a certain point just because people were leaving and the membership was growing older, and it really has been revived. So you kind of have a blank slate to kind of shape it in your vision. What is your vision of Skokie Valley for the next 10, 20 years?
Well, I think one of the really exciting things for me is that it's actually not so radical. We're not doing anything radically different. And it's not just my vision. I'm not coming in as the dictator. It must be like this. There was tremendous alignment between the people who started coming, the new phases who started coming before I got there, and also the people who stuck it out. Yes, a lot of people left, but there was always a core that stuck it out through the lean years. And the vision of the founders of the synagogue, the vision of the people who really stuck it out, the vision of the young people, and my vision, I think are all pretty much aligned. And that's the vision of a synagogue that is deeply rooted in our tradition, in the Jewish tradition, in Jewish law, in Jewish wisdom, in Torah learning, in prayer, and is also very open and welcoming to people of diverse Jewish backgrounds and non-Jewish backgrounds. That is a center in the community for different kinds of activities to happen, that reaches out to people in need and sees itself as it's a mission-driven synagogue. It's not just a synagogue that's there to just kind of serve its own members, but it really has a broader mission in the world. And that's when I look back and I read the founding reports and the early speeches, and when I talk to members who've been there for a long time and what the synagogue means to them, I think we all share that vision, and that's a wonderful thing.
And I mean, it's kind of changed in its focus as what was called a traditional synagogue, right, to a more like modern Orthodox synagogue. What does that mean, that difference?
Well, if the listeners want to get into whole minutia of Orthodox politics over the last 70 years, we can surely do that. But
no.
I think I'll try to boil it down like this. Traditional Judaism was a movement of Judaism that was created based very firmly in Jewish law. It was something that was not like a renegade movement. It was something that it was an idea, certain variations to the prayer service and to the prayer, not even to the service, basically to the structure of the prayer room, and a few other small things that were done to accommodate, to make the space welcoming for people who would not have otherwise prayed in a traditional prayer service, in an Orthodox service. And they asked great Torah scholars and were given permission to do so. Today it wound up not being the way that the Orthodox, the broader kind of community that follows Jewish law in a strict way, went. And it's not for me to judge whether it was right or wrong when it came out, but it's not something which really is compelling to people today. Basically, you have this thing called the mechitza. We have men and women sitting separately. That's in most standard Orthodox synagogues. Traditional movement did away with that. But also, interestingly, it wasn't egalitarian. So what you have now is you have a synagogue that's both more Orthodox, right, because we put it in the mechitza, but also has women doing much more in the service. Right. So we've both moved to the right and to the left at the same time, which I think is interesting. So, bottom line, traditional Judaism was an attempt to maintain integrity to Jewish law and to welcome people. And what we're doing today is that same thing. We are firmly grounded in Jewish law, and we want to make our space as welcoming to people as we can. And today, welcoming might mean something different than it meant back then. Today, welcoming might mean we want to be more welcoming to LGBT members of the community, or we want to be more welcoming to people with special needs to make sure they feel included in the prayers and they can pray with the community. We're still exploring what all those different ways of being inclusive are today, but the spirit is always the same. The spirit is rootedness and openness and welcoming, and that's what we're about.
And, you talk about different groups and welcoming. There's definitely, I think, in modern day, there's a lot of people who don't believe, are atheists, but they still want to be part of the community. How do you see those people being included within a synagogue? How does that fit?
Yeah, well, a synagogue in Hebrew is called a Beit Knesset, which means a house of gathering. Knisa, like Chanes, means to gather. So it's not a Beit Tefillah, it's not a house of prayer. While certainly prayer is a central part of what we do there, at its core, a synagogue is a house of gathering. And I think people can gather for all kinds of positive reasons. And, we're not checking people's belief systems when they walk in the door. We say, if you feel like this is a place you want to be and you want to connect and you have something to offer and we have something to offer you, then we're happy you're here. And that's the bottom line. I mean, Judaism has a long history of, people who wrestled and who struggled and who questioned. And we're certainly a community that welcomes people who wrestle and struggle and question. Mm-hmm. That's really, I think, what the essence of what it means to be a Jewish person. The word Yisrael, which we are, means to Ki si'arita im Elokim ve'adam tuchal, because you wrestled with God. That's what it means. So come on in.
That's good, because, personally, I feel with prayer, I don't have a connection to those words. Mm-hmm. I went to Jewish day school and everything else, and it's just but I like to have that community and be a part of it. So it is nice to have places that are welcoming, because there certainly are many places that don't tolerate that, and you have to be quiet about it. So I think that it kind of exemplifies what you're saying, where you're a beacon to the community in general, and I think that's important. I mean, do you see religion as a way to maintain community in the future, or how it is now?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the model of, I think faith communities are a great model for America and the world right now. Not everything about faith communities are things which we really struggle with, but for example, but that's the model that we have at Skokie Valley. You have a community of several hundred families, and almost 1,000 people, and the vast majority of those people, maybe 75%, live within a 2-mile radius of one another, and they gather together every week. And we talked about a house of gathering, so we gather to pray and to eat, but also we gather to check in. It's a place where if you don't see someone for a week or two, there's an older member of the community, and we come, and they come every single week, and all of a sudden they're not there. Oh, something's wrong. We need to check in on that person. Or just, how you doing? How's it? Like, just that constant social connection, that point of connection for so many people, for children, for adults, for seniors. And then we break bread together. We eat together. We share things in each other's homes. That is a really thick community, and when you look around and you see how isolated people are, and how cut off so many people are, I think that's something that could be a really great model for a lot of America, to live close, to regularly attend something together, and to be involved, almost on a civic level. You have a board, you have people getting on the board. You read about this, the decline of public life, bowling alone, people's civic participation declining. And here you have a synagogue where we had a board meeting the other night, and I think like 30 people came, and they're involved in governance, and sometimes it's hard and fetchy and frustrating,
of
but
course.
But that's what it's all about. That's how you come together. It also creates a very resilient community. You think about climate change, you think about I have I don't know if we've discussed this, but I have a streak of. You can call it paranoia, like worrying about what the world and what's going to happen.
Sure.
And then you think about a community which is tied into each other and knows where each other lives and checks in on one another. That's a very important thing for communal resilience as well.
I think as humans, we need that.
Yeah.
It's the networking. It just people living in isolation can go insane. So I think just goes to your point that how important a resilient community can be.
That's right, and certainly having a shared faith helps bring people together, and we have holidays and all these structures, laws in place for how we come together. So that helps. But I think a lot of the stuff that I'm describing can be done by anybody, by secular groups, by different affinity groups, and I think it would be good to see people doing that more.
I agree. I think that we're just so plugged into our phones and instant gratification of looking at what's on social media. I'm guilty of it. It's you lose touch from actually having conversations with people, and I think that's what's important.
Right.
What are some of the big activities or events that you're working on right now?
There's always a lot going on. Tomorrow night we're having a big community Shabbat dinner, so we're going to have very joyful prayers at, well, I guess it's going to be released after the date.
Right.
joyful prayers followed by a dinner with games and hanging out. We're working on a green team in the synagogue in partnership with Kol Sasson, a group that you're familiar with. Which is
I'm a member of.
Yes, it's a wonderful group that are tenants that rent a space downstairs. And we've partnered together to create a green team that's looking at the building and how we can make it more sustainable, and have some great successes already. We've launched a composting initiative. Just this week, we replaced all of our lights with LED lights that are going to lower our carbon, our carbon footprint and save us money. And we're creating something actually for the teens of the synagogue where they're going to get together and they're going to look at different systems that we have in the building, and they're going to assess them and give us recommendations for how we can lower our carbon footprint and make new changes in the synagogue. So that's very exciting. The green team. We have an ongoing relationship with the Rohingya refugees in Rogers Park, and that's grown and developed over the last 2 years, from bringing them into the synagogue so they could share their story around Passover time, and we could connect our history of genocide and persecution with theirs. Very, very powerful.
Is that connected with any other organizations?
That's the Rohingya Culture Center,
okay,
which is in Rogers Park. And from that, we then built a relationship where we've partnered together. We launched a literacy program for an ESL literacy program for young Rohingya mothers and children. That's Tuesday mornings. We raised about $15,000 to get that started, and now there's an ongoing team of volunteers that are running that.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. It's really amazing. And we actually recently hired a member of the community we had a position in the building in our operations department, and someone from the Rohingya community has now come on board to work in the building, so that's very exciting. So just deepening that
amazing
connection. Yeah. And then just ongoing, there's so many things that we're working on internally to just improve our systems and get the word out about what we're doing, our communications and our social media, et cetera. We have a great series of Jewish intellectual history that's going to be coming up in the spring called The Known and the New. It's like top scholars from all over the Chicagoland area talking about different figures in Jewish intellectual history. And then just trying to create meaningful prayer services. Friday nights, we always sing for about an hour. It's a really special time to come, even if you don't know a word of Hebrew, just to come and wash yourself in beautiful melodies for an hour and then enter into Shabbat, enter into the weekend. Lots of fun things.
And you even have programs on the high holidays where it's more instructional for people who aren't familiar with the prayers or anything with the service, right?
Yeah, again, I think I see our synagogue as having a mission beyond its dues-paying members. We're here to serve people who want to connect to Judaism, and what that means for us is on the high holidays we have what we call the free service. It's we do our regular services in the morning, and then at 3:30. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we have an open service for anybody who wants to come. It's about an hour long. It's in English. It's instructional and uplifting and engaging, and there's no barrier to entry, financially, literacy, etc. We also offer a free Passover Seder every year. That's a Seder that, again, is just for anybody who wants to come to a place with no barriers of cost or background or knowing somebody. You can just come and have a Seder. And last year, we did it for the first time. We had people from as far away as I think Wisconsin and Rockford, and a gentleman who was staying at the YMCA in Evanston, and our regular members. It was a wonderful gathering of all types of different people, and that's what we're all about.
Do you think that your background really helped prepare you for this day to be in this position, making a difference and being successful at it?
My path was not a straight path. It wasn't, the cookie cutter path towards being an Orthodox rabbi. I was born in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's not a hometown known for producing great Orthodox rabbis. My dad was in the Air Force. We lived in Spain. Then we lived here in Evanston, and though my family was Orthodox, we lived in Evanston, which was a little bit off the beaten path. I went to public high school, went to Grinnell College in Iowa. So I've been around different places a little bit. And on the one hand, you could say, well, it's a little weird, it's different, but I'm actually very grateful for the path that God has led me on. I think it really exposed me to a lot of different types of people, exposed me to a lot of different situations, and has really helped me connect to different people because I can understand a lot more, I think, about the world and about people's Jewish lives and just their lives in general than had I gone through the system in the straight ahead way. So I am grateful for those experiences, and look, to come back home, there is something that feels a little, like it was meant to be in a certain way, that to come back and serve this community, which I know so well and which I feel so much a part of, but having been outside of it and also gained and learned in different places, it does feel like this was meant to be.
It sure seems like it, for sure. Rabbi Ari, where can we find you and Skokie Valley on social media and online, and to find everything that you're doing?
So you can come to the building, 8825 East Prairie. It's right behind Specs, Dempster and East Prairie. And come, every Friday night we have a really special hour-long service. Saturday mornings we pray at 9 a.m., 9 to about 11:30. And you're always welcome to come to services. We have daily services, morning and night. We have classes. Check out our website, www.svaj.org. And then social media, we're on Facebook. I believe it's Skokie Valley Agudath Jacob on Facebook. But if you just type Skokie Valley Synagogue, I'm sure you'll find it. And I'm on Facebook, just Ari Hart. Find me there. And hope to meet all who want to come be met. You're always welcome. And just come on down.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate you being on Inside the Skev.
Thanks. It's great. This was a lot of fun, and you're just I wish you so much more continued success in all your work of helping people find their homes, which is such a core and an important thing in a person's physical and spiritual life. And you do a masterful job, and a personal attestation to that. And in building and developing this community, it's a wonderful thing.
I appreciate that, and it's a pleasure to do so. I really enjoy it, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to thank several people for help with today's show. This includes Rabbi Ari Hart from Skokie Valley Agudath Jacob Synagogue for being on the show and as the guest. I'd like to thank my real estate brokerage, Dreamtown Realty in Evanston, for helping me with the graphics for the show. I'd like to thank Industrious in Evanston for use of their space to record. Follow them on Instagram at Industrious Evanston. And if listening to this podcast gave you the bug to buy or sell real estate, give me a call or go to my real estate website at aaronmasliansky.com. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.